My name is Madison Clark. I'm 32, and 6 months ago, I thought I knew everything about family loyalty. Then my sister Sarah crossed a line that shattered everything I believed about blood being thicker than water. What started as a wedding guest list dispute ended with her losing her $2.8 million dream house, her marriage crumbling, and our entire family dynamic permanently altered. But here's the thing nobody saw coming: I wasn't the one who destroyed her life. Before we dive into this family revenge drama that'll make you question everything you know about sibling relationships, I want to know, where are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments below. And if you're ready for a story about karma, betrayal, and the sweetest justice you've ever heard, smash that like button and hit subscribe, because this gets absolutely wild. Trust me, you'll want to stick around for the twist that nobody, not even I, saw coming. Sarah had always been the golden child. 3 years older than me, she'd glided through life collecting achievements like trophies. Valedictorian, full scholarship to Northwestern, MBA from Wharton, and by 28, she was pulling in 7 figures as a corporate attorney at one of Chicago's most prestigious firms. She married Derek, a successful investment banker, in what Chicago Magazine called the wedding of the year. They bought their dream house in Lincoln Park, a stunning Victorian mansion worth $2.8 million that became the centerpiece of Sarah's carefully curated Instagram perfect life. Meanwhile, I was the family disappointment. Art school graduate, freelance graphic designer, living in a cramped studio apartment in Logan Square. Our parents never said it outright, but their pride in Sarah's achievements cast a shadow over everything I accomplished. Every family dinner became an update on Sarah's latest promotion, latest vacation, latest designer purchase. I'd learned to smile and nod, swallowing the constant comparisons that felt like paper cuts to my self-esteem. But here's what nobody knew about perfect Sarah: she was ruthless. Behind her polished exterior and charity galas, she was manipulative, calculating, and had a vindictive streak that would make Regina George look like a saint. She'd perfected the art of cutting people down while maintaining plausible deniability. "Oh, I didn't mean it that way," she'd say with that practiced innocent smile after delivering a particularly cruel observation about my life choices. The first real crack in our relationship came 2 years ago, when I started dating Jake, a teacher at the local high school. Sarah immediately disapproved, making snide comments about his limited earning potential and questioning whether I was settling because I couldn't do better. When Jake and I got engaged last spring, her reaction was lukewarm at best. She offered a tight-lipped congratulations and immediately changed the subject to her own upcoming promotion to senior partner. The tension escalated when we started planning our wedding. Jake and I wanted something small and intimate, about 80 people, in a restored warehouse space in the Arts District. Sarah constantly criticized our choices, from the cheap venue to my decision to design my own invitations. She'd make pointed comments about how different our wedding would be from hers, always with that condescending tone that suggested different meant inferior. But the real problem was our parents. Mom and Dad, desperate to keep peace between their daughters, started pressuring me to include Sarah more in the planning process. "She just wants to help," Mom would say. "She has such good taste and connections." They couldn't see that Sarah's help always came with strings attached and a hefty dose of judgment. The breaking point came during what I thought would be a fun sisters' day out shopping for my dress. Sarah had suggested we go to this high-end boutique in the Gold Coast, somewhere I never would have chosen, but agreed to in the spirit of family bonding. The dresses were beautiful, but way out of my budget. We are talking $3,000 to $8,000 for something I'd wear once. I tried to explain my budget constraints, but Sarah just rolled her eyes. "Madison, this is your wedding day," she said, examining a $6,000 designer gown. "Surely you can invest in looking appropriate for such an important occasion." The word appropriate stung. It was classic Sarah, making me feel inadequate while positioning herself as the helpful big sister. When I finally found a beautiful dress, at a boutique in my neighborhood for $800. Sarah's reaction was devastating. She looked at the photos I sent with barely concealed horror. "Well," she said after a long pause, "I suppose it's very you." Coming from Sarah, that wasn't a compliment. It was her way of saying I looked cheap, unprofessional, and not up to the family's standards. That's when I realized our relationship had become toxic. Every interaction left me feeling diminished, questioning my choices, and wondering why I wasn't enough for my own sister. Jake saw it too. He'd started avoiding family gatherings because Sarah's passive-aggressive comments about his career and our quaint little life made him uncomfortable. We both dreaded the wedding planning process because we knew it would mean months more of Sarah's judgment disguised as concern. 3 months before my wedding, Sarah announced she was throwing a pre-wedding celebration for me. I should have been grateful, but something about her tone set off alarm bells. She insisted on hosting it at her house, controlling the guest list, and planning every detail without my input. When I tried to suggest involving some of my friends from art school, she wrinkled her nose. "Oh, Madison, I'm not sure they'd fit the atmosphere I'm creating," she said. "This is going to be elegant and sophisticated. I've invited the family, some clients who've become friends, and Derek's colleagues' wives. You'll love meeting them, they are all very accomplished women." The subtext was clear: my friends weren't good enough for her standards. But I swallowed my pride, because I thought she was trying to do something nice for me. Mom was thrilled that Sarah was taking charge and making sure I had a proper celebration. Dad offered to help with the costs, which Sarah graciously accepted while making pointed comments about how expensive quality events could be. The party planning became a nightmare of micromanagement. Sarah rejected my suggestions for music, food, and decorations. She hired a photographer without asking me, chosen a caterer I'd never heard of, and created a color scheme that had nothing to do with my actual wedding colors. When I questioned any of her choices, she'd sigh dramatically and say, "I'm doing this for you, Madison. I'm trying to give you the kind of celebration you deserve." But the guest list was where things got really ugly. Sarah had invited 45 people to my intimate, pre-wedding celebration, and I knew maybe 15 of them. The rest were her friends, Derek's business associates, and distant relatives I barely spoke to. When I asked about inviting my college roommate Emma, and my best friend from art school, Zoe, Sarah hesitated. "The thing is, Madison, I've already finalized the catering numbers," she said. "And honestly, I'm not sure Emma would enjoy herself. Remember how awkward she was at my wedding? And Zoe, well, you know how she can be with her political opinions and those tattoos. I just want this to be comfortable for everyone." I felt like I'd been slapped. Emma was awkward at Sarah's wedding because she was recovering from a bad breakup and didn't know anyone. Zoe's political opinions meant she cared about social justice, and her tattoos were beautiful art pieces. But to Sarah, they were embarrassing reminders that I moved in circles she considered beneath her standards. The final straw came when I discovered Sarah had uninvited Jake's parents without telling me. She claimed there wasn't enough space, and that she thought they might feel out of place among the other guests. When I confronted her, she actually seemed surprised by my anger. "Madison, I was trying to save them from an uncomfortable situation," she said. "Your future in-laws are lovely people, but they are very different from our family's friends. I thought you'd appreciate me being considerate of their feelings." That's when it clicked. This wasn't a celebration for me, it was Sarah showing off her wealth and connections using my wedding as an excuse. She wanted to demonstrate her superiority by controlling every aspect of the event, proving she could throw a better party for my wedding than I could throw for myself. The guest list wasn't about celebrating my upcoming marriage. It was about surrounding herself with people who would admire her home, her taste, and her success. I cancelled the party that night. The conversation with Sarah was explosive, our first real fight in years. She accused me of being ungrateful, selfish, and jealous of her success. I told her I was tired of being her prop in her perfect life performance. She said I was being dramatic, and that she'd spent thousands of dollars trying to give me something special. Maybe that's the problem, I shot back. You think money can fix everything, including the fact that you don't actually care about what I want. Sarah's response was ice cold. Fine, Madison. Plan your own little party. But don't expect me to pretend I'm excited about your bargain basement wedding when you clearly don't appreciate the standards our family has worked to achieve. The next day, Mom called crying. Sarah had told her I'd attacked her for being generous and that I was jealous and resentful of her success. Dad was disappointed that I'd hurt Sarah's feelings when she was just trying to help. Neither of them asked for my side of the story. They just assumed I was being difficult, as usual. 2 weeks after our blowout fight, I thought we might be moving past it. Sarah had been civil at family dinner, and she'd even complimented my wedding invitations when Mom showed them around. I started to hope we could rebuild our relationship before the wedding. Then I got a text that changed everything. Hey girl, so excited for your wedding. Quick question. Sarah asked me to check if you got your invitation to her anniversary party next month. She seemed worried it got lost in the mail. Can't wait to see you there. It was from our cousin Jennifer, who lived in California. My blood ran cold. What anniversary party? Sarah and Derek's wedding anniversary wasn't for another 3 months. I called Jennifer immediately, trying to keep my voice casual as I fished for information. Oh, you know, the big party she's throwing at the house, Jennifer said. The one with the live band and the fancy catering. She said it was going to be the event of the season. You must be so excited, she's been planning it for months. My hands were shaking as I hung up. I called 3 more relatives, casual conversations that revealed the devastating truth. Sarah had been planning a massive party for the weekend before my wedding, a 5th anniversary celebration that was clearly designed to upstage my big day. She'd invited everyone in our extended family, all her society friends, and dozens of people who were also invited to my wedding. But here's the kicker, she hadn't invited me. I stared at my phone, processing the magnitude of her betrayal. My own sister had planned a competing event for the weekend before my wedding and had deliberately excluded me from the guest list. She was forcing our entire family to choose between her party and my wedding festivities, knowing most would choose her lavish celebration over my bargain basement event. When I called her to confront her, she didn't even try to deny it. Oh, that, she said dismissively. It's just a small celebration with Derek's business partners. Nothing that would interest you. Jennifer said you hired a live band and invited 200 people. Long pause. Madison, not everything is about you. Derek and I want to celebrate our anniversary with our friends. The timing isn't my fault. The timing is exactly your fault. I was shaking with rage. You planned this deliberately to sabotage my wedding weekend. And you didn't even invite me to my own sister's anniversary party. I didn't think you'd want to come, she said coldly. Given how you reacted to my pre-wedding celebration offer, I assumed you'd prefer to focus on your own event. I was being considerate. Considerate. The word hung in the air like a slap. She was being considerate by excluding me from a family celebration and scheduling it to steal attention from my wedding. The gaslighting was breathtaking in its audacity. You're my sister, I whispered, my voice breaking. How could you do this to me? I'm not doing anything to you, Madison. I'm celebrating my marriage with my husband and our friends. If you can't be happy for me, that says more about you than it does about me. That night, Jake found me crying on our couch, surrounded by wedding planning materials I suddenly couldn't bear to look at. When I told him what Sarah had done, his reaction was swift and decisive. "We are eloping," he said. "I'm not watching my future wife get tortured by her own family for another month. Let's go to City Hall tomorrow, and then take a honeymoon somewhere beautiful. Forget this whole circus." For a moment, I was tempted. The idea of escaping the drama and starting fresh was incredibly appealing. But then I thought about all the people who were genuinely excited to celebrate with us, Jake's family, my real friends, the cousins and aunts and uncles who actually cared about me as a person rather than as a reflection of family success. "No," I said, surprising myself with the firmness in my voice. "I'm not letting her steal this from me. We are having our wedding exactly as planned. She can throw her party and pretend it's not about sabotaging me, but I refuse to let her win by running away." Jake squeezed my hand. "Then we'll make it the most amazing celebration of our love that anyone's ever seen. And anyone who chooses her party over our wedding isn't someone we need in our lives anyway." But as the RSVPs started coming in, the pattern became clear. Extended family members were politely declining my wedding, citing prior commitments, or scheduling conflicts. My Aunt Michelle called to apologetically explain that she'd already committed to Sarah's party and couldn't afford 2 trips to Chicago in one weekend. My cousin David sent regrets because Derek had invited him to play golf with some important business contacts at their anniversary celebration. One by one, people were choosing Sarah's lavish party over my intimate wedding. And the worst part was, they didn't even realize they were being manipulated into making that choice. Sarah had positioned her event as a sophisticated networking opportunity and family celebration, while subtly implying that my wedding was a smaller, less important affair that they could easily skip. The week before my wedding, I was a wreck. Half our guest list had cancelled, my parents were still taking Sarah's side, and I felt completely isolated from my own family. That's when I got an unexpected phone call that changed everything. It was Melissa, Derek's sister-in-law, and she sounded nervous. "Madison, I need to tell you something, but you have to promise not to say where you heard it." "What is it?" I asked, my heart racing. "Derek's been having an affair. For over a year. Sarah doesn't know, but I found out because my husband handles some of their financial accounts, and there are irregularities. Hotel charges, jewelry purchases, things that don't match up with Sarah's schedule." The world seemed to tilt sideways. Perfect Derek, cheating on perfect Sarah. Are you sure? Positive. And Madison, there's more. The anniversary party. It's not what Sarah thinks it is. Derek's been telling people it's a business networking event, and he's using it to introduce his mistress to his colleagues as his business partner. Sarah has no idea she's throwing a party to help her husband legitimize his affair. I felt sick to my stomach, but also strangely vindicated. All those times Sarah had looked down on my relationship with Jake, questioning whether he was good enough for me, worthy of our family's standards. All her snide comments about my simple life and modest choices. And her husband was cheating on her while she planned elaborate parties to show off their perfect marriage. But then Melissa dropped the real bombshell, there's something else. The house. Madison, they are going to lose the house. Derek's been embezzling from his firm to fund the affair and maintain their lifestyle. He's borrowed against everything they own, including Sarah's trust fund. The FBI is investigating. It's all going to come out soon. My head was spinning. Does Sarah know any of this? Nothing. She thinks they are financially secure and happily married. She's been spending money like crazy for this anniversary party. I heard her telling someone she spent $50,000 on flowers and catering alone. Derek's been encouraging it, probably because he knows it doesn't matter anymore. After I hung up, I sat in stunned silence. Part of me felt vindicated. Sarah's perfect life was a lie, her husband was a criminal and a cheater, and she was about to lose everything she'd used to make me feel inadequate. But a bigger part of me felt genuinely sorry for her. Despite everything she'd done to me, she was still my sister, and she was about to have her world destroyed. I wrestled with what to do with this information. Should I warn her? She'd never believe me, and she'd probably assume I was making it up out of jealousy. Should I tell our parents? They'd react the same way, and it might just create more family drama before my wedding. Should I keep quiet and let events unfold naturally? You know what? I need to pause here for a second because this story takes such a wild turn from this point on. If you're watching this thinking your own family drama is complicated, just wait until you hear what happens next. Before we continue, I'm genuinely curious, have you ever discovered a family secret that completely changed how you saw someone? Drop a comment and let me know, because this revelation about Derek was just the beginning. And if you're invested in finding out whether Sarah gets what's coming to her, make sure you hit that subscribe button because the karma in this story is absolutely incredible. In the end, I decided to focus on my own wedding and let the truth reveal itself in its own time. I had 3 days to get through my own celebration, and I wasn't going to let Sarah's drama overshadow the most important day of my life. But I'll admit, there was a part of me that felt a grim satisfaction knowing that while she was sabotaging my wedding weekend, her own life was about to implode spectacularly. The night before my wedding, Jake and I had a small rehearsal dinner at our favorite restaurant in Logan Square. It was intimate, warm, and filled with the people who genuinely cared about us. My parents came, though they seemed subdued and kept checking their phones, probably getting updates from Sarah's pre-party preparations. A few cousins who'd chosen our wedding over Sarah's party were there, along with Jake's family and our closest friends. As I looked around the table at the people who'd chosen to be there for us, I realized something important. Sarah's guest list manipulation had actually done me a favor. The people celebrating with us were the ones who truly mattered, who saw value in Jake and me as individuals rather than as representatives of social status or family prestige. The relatives who'd skipped my wedding for Sarah's party had revealed where their priorities lay, and honestly, I was better off without them. Jake's best man stood up to give a toast, and his words brought tears to my eyes. Madison and Jake, you two have shown us what real love looks like. Not the kind that's performed for social media, or designed to impress others, but the kind that's built on genuine respect, shared values, and mutual support. Tomorrow, you're not just getting married, you're proving that authentic love is always more powerful than artificial perfection. My wedding day dawned bright and clear, and for the first time in months, I felt genuinely happy and peaceful. Jake and I had decided to see each other before the ceremony, breaking tradition to have a private first-look moment in the art gallery adjacent to our venue. When he saw me in my $800 dress, his eyes filled with tears. "You're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen," he whispered, and I knew he meant it in a way that had nothing to do with designer labels or expensive accessories. The ceremony was everything I'd hoped for: intimate, meaningful, and surrounded by people who genuinely celebrated our love. My parents were there, though they seemed distracted and kept whispering to each other during the quieter moments. I assumed they were thinking about Sarah's party happening across town, and I tried not to let it bother me. But then, just as Jake and I were exchanging rings, my phone started buzzing in my maid of honor's purse. Then Emma's phone. Then my mom's phone. Something was happening, but we were in the middle of our vows, and I wasn't about to let anything interrupt that sacred moment. "Madison," Jake said, his voice strong and clear, "you've taught me that love isn't about having a perfect life, it's about building a real life with someone who sees the best in you even when you can't see it yourself. You've shown me that integrity matters more than appearances, and that kindness is more valuable than any amount of money or status." I was crying as I said my vows back to him, words I'd written from the heart about choosing authenticity over perfection, about finding someone who loved my dreams instead of trying to change them, about building a partnership based on mutual respect rather than competition. The phones kept buzzing, But we ignored them until after we'd been pronounced husband and wife and shared our first kiss, as a married couple. Only then did Emma discreetly check her phone and immediately went pale. "Madison," she whispered urgently, "you need to see this. Now?" She showed me her phone, and my jaw dropped. Sarah's anniversary party had been raided by the FBI. The news was already breaking on local media websites. Derek had been arrested for embezzlement, money laundering, and fraud. The party had been in full swing when federal agents arrived with search warrants and handcuffs. But here's where the story gets absolutely wild, and this is the part that still gives me chills when I think about it. The person who'd tipped off the FBI wasn't some whistleblower from Derek's firm or a suspicious bank employee. It was Derek's mistress. Her name was Rachel, and she'd been Derek's business partner for 18 months. But what Derek didn't know was that Rachel was actually an undercover FBI agent who'd been investigating his firm for financial crimes. She'd gotten close to him as part of her investigation, and Derek had unknowingly been confessing to federal crimes while trying to impress her with his wealth and connections. The anniversary party, the one Derek had encouraged Sarah to throw, the one he'd wanted to use to introduce Rachel to his colleagues, had been the perfect opportunity for the FBI to gather evidence and make arrests. Rachel had worn a wire to the party, recording Derek as he bragged to his friends about his creative financial strategies and untraceable investment techniques. Sarah's elaborate $50,000 party had literally been the venue for her husband's downfall. The ice sculptures she'd commissioned, the live orchestra she'd hired, the imported flowers she'd arranged, it had all provided the backdrop for Derek's arrest and the destruction of everything she'd thought she knew about her life. But wait, it gets even more incredible. Remember how Sarah had deliberately scheduled her party to compete with my wedding, forcing family members to choose between events? Well, every single person who'd chosen her party over my wedding had been present when the FBI raid happened. They'd all been questioned, had their names taken, and been asked to provide statements about their relationship with Derek. My cousin David, who'd skipped my wedding to play golf with Derek's business contacts. He spent my wedding day being interviewed by federal agents about money laundering. Aunt Michelle, who'd chosen Sarah's party because it seemed more important. She was stuck at the police station giving testimony until 2 a.m. Meanwhile, Jake and I were having the most beautiful reception, surrounded by people who'd chosen love over status, authenticity over appearances. We danced to our favorite songs, laughed with friends who genuinely cared about us, and celebrated the beginning of our marriage without any of the drama or chaos happening across town. The irony was so perfect it almost seemed orchestrated by the universe itself. Sarah's attempt to sabotage my wedding weekend by stealing my guests had actually protected them from being caught up in her husband's criminal activity. The people who'd stayed loyal to me were safe and celebrating, while the ones who'd chosen her party were dealing with FBI interviews and criminal investigations. The week after my wedding was surreal. Jake and I were supposed to be on our honeymoon in Costa Rica, but the family drama was so intense that we postponed the trip. Sarah's world had completely collapsed, and despite everything she'd done to me, I couldn't just disappear while she was dealing with the fallout. The details that emerged about Derek's crimes were staggering. He'd embezzled over $3 million from his firm, used client funds for personal investments, and created elaborate fake documents to cover his tracks. The house, the cars, Sarah's jewelry, their vacation properties, everything was bought with stolen money. The FBI had frozen all their assets, and Sarah was left with literally nothing. But the betrayal ran even deeper than financial crimes. Derek had been planning to divorce Sarah and disappear with Rachel, who he still thought was his mistress and business partner. He'd been systematically transferring assets offshore, preparing to leave Sarah penniless while he started a new life. The anniversary party had been his way of saying goodbye to his old life before vanishing with what he thought was his new love. Sarah called me 3 days after my wedding, and she was completely broken. The sister I'd known, confident, controlling, superior, was gone. In her place was a woman who'd lost everything and had no idea how to function without the wealth and status that had defined her identity. "Madison," she sobbed into the phone, "I don't know what to do. They took everything. The house, the cars, my jewelry, even my clothes if they were bought with stolen money. I'm staying in a hotel, and I can't even afford that for much longer. Mom and Dad are helping, but their retirement savings can only stretch so far." I felt a complicated mix of emotions. Part of me was angry she'd tried to sabotage my wedding just days earlier, had spent years making me feel inadequate, had chosen status over sisterhood repeatedly. But hearing her so completely devastated, I couldn't help but feel compassionate. She was still my sister, and she was genuinely suffering. "What about work?" I asked. "Can't the law firm help?" "They fired me," she said bitterly. "Not because I did anything wrong, but because the scandal reflects poorly on the firm. Apparently, being married to a federal criminal makes you unemployable in corporate law, even if you had no knowledge of the crimes." The cruel irony wasn't lost on me. Sarah had spent years judging my career choices, implying that my freelance graphic design work was somehow beneath our family's standards. Now she was unemployed and unemployable, while my flexible career and lower overhead meant Jake and I were financially stable and secure. But here's where the story takes another unexpected turn. As Sarah was dealing with the immediate crisis of having no money and no home, she discovered something that changed everything she thought she knew about our family dynamics. She'd moved back in with our parents temporarily, sleeping in her childhood bedroom, and trying to figure out how to rebuild her life from scratch. While going through old family documents to help the lawyers sort out which assets were legitimate and which were purchased with stolen funds, she found something that shattered her understanding of our family history. Hidden in Dad's filing cabinet was a folder labeled Madison Education Fund. Inside were documents showing that our grandparents had left a substantial inheritance specifically designated for my education and future. But instead of giving it to me, our parents had given it to Sarah to help pay for her expensive private school, her Northwestern tuition, and her Wharton MBA. The money that had funded Sarah's superior education and given her the head start that led to her successful career. It had been meant for me. Our parents had essentially stolen my inheritance to invest in Sarah's future, then spent years making me feel like a failure for not achieving what she had achieved with my own money. Sarah confronted them about it, and the truth came pouring out. Our parents had decided when we were teenagers that Sarah was the smart one, who would go far in life, while I was the creative one, who would probably struggle financially. They'd made the calculated decision to invest my inheritance in Sarah's education because they believed it would benefit the family more in the long run. "We thought Sarah would take care of you eventually," Mom said through tears. "We thought her success would lift the whole family up, and you'd benefit from having a wealthy sister." The betrayal was devastating for Sarah in a completely different way than Derek's crimes had been. She realized that her entire adult life, her education, her career, her sense of superiority over me had been built on stolen money. Not just Derek's embezzlement, but our parents' theft of my inheritance. "Madison," she said when she called to tell me, "I need to make this right. I don't know how, but I need to find a way to give you back what was stolen from you." "Sarah," I said quietly, "you can't give me back my 20s. You can't undo the years I spent feeling like I wasn't good enough, wasn't smart enough, wasn't worthy of the family's investment or pride. The money is just money, it's the betrayal of trust that really hurts." But she was determined to find a way to make amends, and that determination led to the most shocking revelation of all. What happened next is the kind of poetic justice that makes you believe the universe really does keep score. Sarah, desperate to make things right with me and needing to find a way to support herself, decided to do something that would have been unthinkable 6 months earlier. She asked for my help. "Madison, I know I have no right to ask this after everything I've done, but I need work. Any kind of work. I can't practice corporate law anymore, but I could do contract work, legal research, anything. Do you know anyone who might hire someone with my background despite the scandal? I thought about it for a moment, then had an idea that felt like destiny clicking into place. Actually, I might know someone. But you'd have to be willing to work for a lot less money than you're used to, and you'd have to check your ego at the door. 3 months later, Sarah was working as a legal consultant for the non-profit arts organization that had become my biggest client. She was helping artists protect their intellectual property, negotiate contracts, and navigate the legal complexities of the creative industry. The pay was a fraction of what she'd made at her corporate firm, but it was honest work that actually helped people instead of just enriching wealthy corporations. But here's the beautiful twist that brings this whole story full circle. Working with artists, and seeing the creative industry from the inside, Sarah finally understood what I'd been trying to tell her for years about the value of creative work. She saw how talented artists struggled to make living wages, how the system was rigged against creative people, and how her previous dismissive attitude toward my career had been both ignorant and cruel. "Madison," she said one day as we were working on a contract together, "I owe you an apology that's about 10 years overdue. I was so caught up in society's definition of success that I couldn't see the value in what you were doing. You were building something real and meaningful while I was just accumulating symbols of status." But the most incredible part came when Sarah discovered something while researching art law for our nonprofit clients. She found out that several of my early graphic design pieces, logos I'd created for local businesses, that had gone on to become major regional brands, were being used without proper licensing agreements. These companies owed me tens of thousands of dollars in usage fees and royalties. Using her legal expertise, Sarah helped me file claims against these companies and negotiate settlements. Within 6 months, I'd recovered over $150,000 in owed royalties, almost exactly the amount that had been taken from my inheritance fund and used for Sarah's education. "I can't give you back the money our parents stole from you," Sarah said as she handed me the settlement check, "but I can make sure you get paid what your work is actually worth." But the karma wasn't finished yet. Remember Derek's mistress Rachel, the undercover FBI agent? Well, it turns out the investigation that brought him down was part of a larger probe into financial crimes in Chicago's legal and business community. The evidence Derek had provided while trying to impress her led to a massive corruption scandal that brought down several other firms and exposed a network of embezzlement and fraud that had been operating for years. Sarah's old law firm was one of the firms implicated in the wider scandal. The senior partners who had fired her to avoid association with Derek's crimes were arrested themselves for similar offenses. The firm collapsed completely, and Sarah was vindicated in the most public way possible. The local legal newspaper ran a story about how Sarah Clark, the innocent victim of her husband's crimes, was now dedicating her career to helping artists and nonprofits protect themselves from the kind of financial predators she'd been unknowingly married to. She'd gone from being seen as a potential co-conspirator to being celebrated as a reformed advocate for the underdog. And Derek? His sentence was 15 years in federal prison. Rachel's testimony was devastating. She had recordings of him admitting to crimes, bragging about manipulating clients, and planning to abandon Sarah with nothing while he started a new life with stolen money. The judge called his actions a profound betrayal of professional ethics and basic human decency. 6 months after my wedding, Jake and I finally took that honeymoon to Costa Rica. But this time, Sarah came with us not as the superior big sister showing off her wealth, but as a friend who'd learned the hard way that authentic relationships matter more than artificial status. On our last night there, as we sat on the beach watching the sunset, Sarah turned to me and said, "Madison, I spent so many years thinking I was winning some competition, I didn't realize we weren't even playing the same game. You were building a life based on love and creativity and authenticity, and I was just collecting trophies that meant nothing." The funny thing is, I replied, I used to envy your life. The house, the career, the status. I thought you had everything figured out while I was just stumbling around trying to find my path. But you did have everything figured out, she said. You just figured out different things. You figured out how to be happy with who you are instead of trying to be someone else's definition of successful. You figured out how to choose a partner who loves you for who you really are instead of who you could be useful to their career. You figured out how to do work that matters to you instead of just work that pays well. A year later, Sarah and I are closer than we've ever been. She's living in a modest apartment in my neighborhood, working at the nonprofit, and slowly rebuilding her life based on genuine values instead of external validation. She's dating a public school teacher, someone she would have looked down on 2 years ago, but now recognizes as a good man who treats her with respect and kindness. Our parents had to do some serious soul-searching about their role in our family dynamics. The revelation about my stolen inheritance forced them to confront their own biases and the damage they'd done by playing favorites. They are in family therapy now, trying to understand why they thought investing in one daughter's success at the expense of the other was acceptable. Jake and I bought a house last month, not a $2.8 million mansion, but a cozy craftsman bungalow with a studio space where I can work and a garden where Jake can grow vegetables. It's everything we actually wanted, not what we thought we should want to impress other people. And Sarah? She's the first to admit that losing everything was the best thing that ever happened to her. I was so busy trying to prove I was successful that I never stopped to ask if I was actually happy, she told me recently. I had everything I thought I wanted and nothing I actually needed. The house in Lincoln Park was eventually sold by the FBI to pay restitution to Derek's victims. Sarah drove by it once and said seeing it didn't make her sad. It was never really mine anyway, she said. It was just another prop in a performance I was giving for an audience that didn't really matter. So here's what I want to ask you, have you ever had a moment where someone's attempt to hurt you actually ended up revealing their own weaknesses? Where karma came back around in a way that was so perfect it almost seemed planned? Drop your stories in the comments, because I love hearing about cosmic justice in action. And if this story taught you anything about the difference between authentic success and performed success, or if you've ever dealt with family members who made you feel less than worthy, I'd love to hear from you. Sometimes the people who try to diminish us are actually the ones who are most insecure about their own choices. Before you go, make sure to hit that like button if this story kept you engaged. Seriously, that twist with the FBI agent still gives me chills when I think about it. Subscribe for more stories about family drama, unexpected revelations, and cosmic justice. And share this with anyone who needs to hear that sometimes the best revenge is simply living authentically while watching karma do its work. From my family to yours, I hope you remember that real success isn't about having the biggest house or the most impressive career, it's about building relationships based on genuine love and respect, doing work that matters to you, and staying true to your values even when others try to make you feel small for it. Sometimes losing everything is exactly what we need to find out who we really are. Thanks for watching, and remember, the universe has a way of balancing the scales, even when it takes longer than we'd like. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next story.